Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here, and I shall be speaking upon interparietal access. I'm extremely grateful to Dr. Praveen Bhatia, my mentor, and Dr. Mukund Khitan for sharing valuable inputs, insight, and videos for making this presentation. So when we talk about interparietal access, what we actually mean is totally extraperitoneal access, or TEP, which we all know. So the idea of this concept is to completely avoid entry inside the peritoneal cavity. This TEP access is mainly used for inguinal hernias of all sorts, like unilateral, bilateral, recurrent, or irreducible ones. We also started now using it for small ventral hernias, wherein we call it as ETEP Reeves-Topa or ETEP RS. And for very large ventral hernias, wherein we encounter loss of domains, where we also know it as ETEP RS with an added TAR. With an added TAR, we mean a transversus abdominis muscle release. So for inguinal hernias, what we use is a TEP, that is a totally extraperitoneal repair. It can be ETEP. In ETEP, the added E is enhanced view TEP. Or for ventral hernias, we can use it as ETEP RS, that is ETEP Reeves-Topa. ETEP Reeves-Topa with TAR means ETEP with a transversus abdominis release. So this picture basically gives us an idea of what we mean when we talk about a totally extraperitoneal access. You can see this balloon here. It is going through the walls of the layers of the abdominal wall, and it just stops short of the posterior rectus sheath. When we reach the posterior rectus sheath, we slide it caudally and we enter the extraperitoneal space. And once we reach the extraperitoneal space, this balloon is inflated and the preperitoneal space is widely developed. So the classical TEP, we used it for inguinal hernias, and the basic difference between TEP and ETEP is that the site of the optical port is is little bit different in TEP as compared to the ETEP, which we'll discuss later on. The armamentarium which we require for a classical TEP approach is, first of all, a balloon over the suction cannula, which can be very, very comfortably made, although it comes as pre-designed from Medtronic also. We prefer to have a threaded 5 mm ports with low profile, that is the head end should be very small so that there's no clashing of instruments. The number one port closure vehicle, that is 2826, is the best for this because it has got a very short and stout needle, and Hassan's cannula, which has got fixation struts on the side so that the port doesn't move in and out, and the S-shaped retractors, which are very handy in creating this extraperitoneal space. The positioning has to be in such a way that the area of surgery, that is the lower and the mid abdomen, is at the tangentially highest point. So you can see the port sites, that the 10 mm, the 5 and the 5 mm, and the site of the hernia as well. At the site of the 10 mm port, we make a skin incision and bluntly dissect using the S-shaped retractors right up to the anterior rectus sheath. Once the anterior rectus sheath is visible, we give a sharp incision with the 11 number blade, and the anterior rectus sheath is cut into is divided, exposing the rectus muscle. Now the two cut ends are tied with the port closure vicryl so that the rectus muscle is exposed even better. At this stage, we use an S-shaped retractor and swipe this rectus muscle laterally to expose the glistening white posterior rectus sheath. So mind you that the posterior rectus sheath, once exposed, is the most important layer for proper entry into the preperitoneal space. Once the posterior rectus sheath is exposed, we put in the endogenous balloon on it, and we slide the balloon on the posterior rectus sheath in the caudal direction. You have to be very, very careful that at the slightest resistance, you have to stop there, and no further further progression of this cannula should be there. Otherwise, there is a fear of tearing through the peritoneum. Now you inflate the balloon with approximately 100 to 120 ml of normal saline, hold for 2 to 3 minutes for a tamponade of any small bleeders, and then deflate it. Once the space is created, you place the Hassan's port in it, fix the vicryl width on the struts, and start the carbon dioxide insufflation. And now what we achieve is not pneumoperitoneum, but a pneumopreperitoneum. So a very, very small video to see once the TP space is created, what we actually see when we put the camera inside is this. This, what we have made, is the left retrorectus space, and it is known as the left retrorectus tunnel. Down, you can see the posterior rectus sheath, which is ending at the level of the arcuate line, and medially you can see the midline. So we'll not go into the further dissection video because that is not part of our presentation today. And once we place further 2 5mm ports between the pubic symphysis and the 10mm, this is the final picture which we are going to have. Now there is one more method of entry, which is the direct optical port entry, which we are using nowadays and which is faster, quicker, little bit difficult to, I wouldn't say difficult actually, a little bit, it has got its own simple learning curve. So this video will demonstrate the same. You can see that the 10mm incision is made at the point where we want optical port entry. And now there is no further dissection and we directly enter through the what we known as the OptiView trocar. So this OptiView trocar is marketed by the in the name of Endopath XL, which is from Johnson & Johnson company, although there are other companies also marketing it. We open the lock so that the cannula can freely move around the 10 mm 0 degree optics. Once we have put it, now we start dissecting into the deeper layers of the skin. Once the skin is crossed, we have the subcutaneous fatty tissue. You go on dissecting down in the posterior direction, and then you reach the anterior rectus sheath. Once the anterior rectus sheath is encountered, you can see as a white glistening thing. You further pierce the anterior rectus sheath, and what you encounter now is the bright red rectus muscle. Continue your dissection downwards, splitting the rectus muscle, and then the final and the most important layer which you encounter is the posterior rectus sheath. As I've already mentioned, you have to be very careful not to pierce the posterior rectus sheath. So for that, what you do is you change your direction of push from posteriorly to caudally at the time. So you can see here in the external video that the direction, the surgeon has changed the direction of push from posteriorly to caudally, and further continue the dissection inside. Okay, so now what you see here on the top and the sides is the rectus muscle, and posteriorly is the posterior rectus sheath. Once the arcuate line is crossed, you can start pneumo-preperitoneum, that you can start the CO2 insufflation that will further help you to create the space with a concomitant carbon dioxide insufflation. A little bit of maneuvering is required because we don't have a balloon and we want to make this as a blunt space creation, and the space is created. Now, once you put the camera back inside, readjust and focus, you see exactly the same space which we encountered after the classical TEP. So these are two ways how you gain access to the extraperitoneal space. Now, what all can go wrong? See, the most important and I think least of the important is the peritoneal tear. That is, the intraperitoneal entry might occur. If it does occur, with experience, you can continue your surgery with a little bit of difficulty, but you will be able to achieve it properly. If you find it very difficult to proceed, you can convert altogether from TEP to the TAPP approach. Next, and very significant, are the vascular injuries, right from the inferior epigastric injury on the top, iliac vessels, caudally, spermatic vessels laterally, and the vessels over the pubic arch, classically known as the corona mortis, on the medial side. You have to be very, very careful not to injure any of these. Nerve injuries definitely can happen, and they happen usually during mesh fixation, and that too laterally. Vas deferens injury is nothing new to extraperitoneal approach because it can actually happen in the open surgery as well, because you know in the indirect sac, the vas is very, very closely adherent to the sac. So whenever you do the dissection, you have to be very careful. The vas deferens has to be identified and isolated. Something very peculiar to TEP is undetected injuries, which happen usually in the newcomers because of the disorientation in a very small space and feeling of getting lost. All these injuries, all these problems can be tackled over a period of time by assisting, attending, and then finally doing more and more extraperitoneal approaches. Thank you. Over to Dr. Vijay for expert comments. Thank you.